I'm really hoping the start of the stream just picked up you saying, yay.
I'll let you know in a hot second.
Because I hit start as you did that. It was quite something. Welcome everyone to a political recap stream with myself. Yep. And my delightful co-host Trups. Say hello, Trups.
Hello, Trups.
How's Trups been?
Trups is alright, and yes, by the way, the yay did come through.
That is fantastic. I'm so happy. Can you tell?
Oh, I can.
There was something,
especially in the context.
I could have sworn there was something that happened this week that annoyed you, and I can't remember.
I was called a Gamergator.
That was it. How did that happen?
Yeah. So that was a fun little adventure I had. For those watching, I was actually in one of my tweets were in one of the Quarterings videos, in which I engaged in a debate with a senior game developer from Guerrilla Games.
Mm-hmm.
And as he shared it around, apparently, the game developer then took the screenshot and said, Gamergators are sharing around my out-of-context tweets. And I thought to myself, ooh, I have officially become a Gamergator.
Congratulations. How does it feel?
It feels nice, because actually that was when I really considered starting up doing YouTube again, was around that time, 2015-ish.
Yeah. Well, I did something different. I don't really get into debates on Twitter. By the way, I started at Get Around the time of Gamergate. Don't recall seeing you there. But sure, you're a Gamergator.
I was almost exclusively watching Sargon and Bearing at the time.
I was watching the same, but I think I made a couple videos on Gamergate, but I think the only time I did was when it was starting to die. So I did something different. To honour a Streamlabs donation, the target was to buy gnomes. I have enough to buy 2, but the shop only had 1 today. So, and I'll put it on the screen. I bought him. That is Pencil Cookie. Yeah, named in honour of Pencil Cookie. He's very white.
As he should.
And I also, I have to zoom in here. You can't see it clearly, but I had to draw Uwu on his head with a gold permanent marker pen that I have. Oh, there we go. It's much better. That's not creepy in the slightest, is it? But
yeah. Yes, of course not.
But yeah, I did this. Let's zoom in further. There we go. That's not creepy. Enjoy that.
That is actually quite well done. The face is terribly disturbing.
It's it's a resin, not a clay.
Ceramic.
Yeah. So it was very light, which when I was walking to go and pick it up, I was a tad concerned it would be made of clay and it'd be very heavy.
No, honey monster, we are not doing red hats here. Dear God, no.
No, he's gonna stay white. I did do one thing with him recently. I found I have a spare pair of sunglasses. And a brother-in-law suggested putting them on him, and I got some blue tack and found that the deal with it shades just fit on him. Wait, my house is bigger than expected. Have I missed something?
It's because of the castle
the
picture.
Castle, yeah. That is, yeah. The doors weren't meant.
What can you expect?
Well, yes. The doors weren't meant to be open, but there was a surveyor, and they went into an office, and the doors were open for a second. So I ran inside. There's some cannons just on the inside of the door, and I took a photo of them stood on them as well. So they weren't meant to be open, but yeah.
Well, that's exciting. I noticed that you tend to take a walk every morning. Well, I guess it would be afternoon for you. Morning.
It's morning for me. But I go for about 10-mile walk, just walk about, see where I go. I put some music on, I just ignore it. But yeah.
Oh, that's a very peaceful thing to do. I wish.
Gnoming.
Gnome.
Tomorrow I will take him to the pier, because I couldn't today, it was too busy. I'll put him in the boat on a statue of the pier, in front of the pier. Take him to the pub, maybe take him to the bakery and stick him in the oven.
We had a thing back when I was much younger in primary school. We called it Flat Stanley. And it was a book. about like this 2D like paper cutout of a person,
Mm-hmm.
and they would, he went on adventures in the book. It was a very, young child book. And then we all made our own, and we were supposed to go on vacation or do a thing and take a picture. And that was an old assignment that I had, I think, in like third grade or so.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing this, and I'm like, that's kind of how it looks, and it's kind of really funny and kind of nostalgic.
Yeah. Today I thought what we'll do is, before we get into the serious subjects, I linked in our Discord a rather amusing article, and because it's from a totally reliable source, we should definitely talk about it for a second.
Is that the Daily Mail?
No, it's the Breitbart one.
Oh, let me see.
I'll put it on the screen here.
Yes, I see it.
Illegal immigrant arrested after having sex with a cow. Right, so first of all, I have checked that it is referenced. This El Tejano thing takes you to a Facebook page. I am not going to click on that.
El Tejano is in fact a newspaper in Mexico.
Right, that link though takes you to Facebook, and it does reference this as legitimate, that this mono-browed fuck quoted having sex with a cow. It's not having sex with a cow, it's bestiality, it's rape. Poor cow did not consent. Then again, the cow doesn't consent to being artificially inseminated to get milk, but that's a different thing. But just because you do it to a cow to get milk does not mean you get to unload your milk into a cow.
Ew.
I thought
that image is so fucked.
I just wanted to do one light-hearted story, okay?
Oh yeah, that's fine. I don't know if that's lighthearted. That poor cow.
Well, it certainly is by comparison to an entire nation getting fucked by a petition and by Brexit or the collusion nonsense.
Oh yes, we have plenty of stories about fuckery. So.
Oh, and the bans of firearms, which we'll get to. I think I'm going to start with revoking Article 50. The thumbnail for this
let's do that.
Yesterday, the petition had 50,000 signatures yesterday. This morning it had what was on the thumbnail, 940, I think. Now it currently, an hour ago, is at 1.4 million. Now it's at 1.68 million. Here it is.
I'm shilling for us.
Thank you. The problem with this petition is that obviously it's only it's a huge amount. I can't deny that. That is a vast number of people who have voted for it or signed for it. However, it will not happen. It cannot happen. Because this does not trump the 17.4 million people that voted to leave. Now, yes, some of these voters will undoubtedly have been Leave voters that changed their mind. But
I wonder if I can sign that petition.
If you've set up a fake account, you could. You actually could. It's not hard to do. And that's actually an important point. Because there have been accusations of fake accounts being made on this. In the sense that... and I have to go with the Daily Mail because this one's the most stupidly put. Where they put in here, names look like they've been added from North Korea and Afghanistan. So I'm sorry, but that doesn't mean the people doing it aren't British, you fucking racists. Although, I didn't know...
And that was the Daily Mail?
Yeah, I don't think...
I thought the Daily Mail left.
No, they're...
Fucking racist.
Yeah, sarcasm sign, everyone. I don't know if North Korea have the internet connection. I don't think we have many of their expats over here. I don't mind this happening. I know there are a number of celebrities in this country. Dr. Brian Cox, some physicist idiot. Annie Lennox, the singer, and Hugh Grant, they're all ardent Remainers, and they're all backing this campaign. It's fantastic, great, back it. But it will not go through. It can't.
It doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. It's the same with the petitions that happen every year changing the definition of rape. Oh. Thank you, somebody. Steve, thank you for that donation. That's very kind of you. One step closer to a Primark. What is it called? The petition. Whenever the rape definition ones crop up, it gets summarily rejected. The government has a path. Their path is to get an extension until June or July. They cannot now revoke Article 50 because even though that would be supported by most MPs, it would go against what the people voted for. And you have to decide whose voice is more important, those who will not be re-elected or those that voted them in. And you have to go with those that voted you in. Yes, okay, the difference was only 1 million voters. But Leave still won. We're not doing best 2 out of 3. And we don't do, well, you did it, but actually, and this is important, the government was not under any actual mandate legally to enact or enact Article 50. The vote was actually advisory. They never had to do it. They could have ignored the people, which would have been career suicide for David Cameron. Verifiable fact, although it was also career suicide when he decided to have the referendum in the first place. People are claiming that those that signed this are the only sane people in the country. There are over 65 million people in this country. I don't think the 1.6 million people who are voting for this are sane. I think they are desperate. And I think they're desperate because they know they can't win. This is symbolic at best. Like removing no deal through an amendment in Parliament, it is entirely symbolic. It is not binding or legal. The government can ignore this. They don't have to do shit. They want to try and get an extension and get the deal across the line, which we will get to in a moment.
Well, it's interesting. You know, the 1.6 mil
1.75 mil.
Okay. 1.75 mil say they're the only sane ones left in the country. That's a whole lot of fucking contempt for your countrymen. Are you sure you're even for the country?
At this point, I think, considering excuse me, considering what the EU is, I'm not anti-EU or anything like that, but it is something that is trying to be more globalist and try and reduce the power of a country to a state level. I think something, and I just lost my train of thought. Oh dear, that was...
You're not anti-EU, but the EU is trying to reduce the power of a
So
country.
those that are in favour of us revoking Article 50 are very anti-nationalist in that regard, which I think is quite... it's not wrong to be pro-nationalist. I think it's an issue when it's a racial element, but only because I think that it's just stupid. But will Burko allow... Okay, Serene in the chat, no he won't, not unless the deal was changed. Sorry, I didn't...
In a matter of speaking, I'm also anti-EU. I know it doesn't really matter from an American's point of view, but what it essentially looks like is a coalition of what happens to be geographically nearby countries to kind of have a super special club that no one else gets to be a part of.
Yeah, it is a bit... The way the EU is structured is very peculiar as well. People say it's democratic, but by definition it is not. There are 3, maybe 4 presidents within it. It makes no sense. You have the Commission, the Council, the Parliament. It's stupid. I get why you'd have to have a separate chamber for the heads of states, which is essentially your version of Senate. But I think... or a mother's meeting of governors. I think if you're going to go down the path of trying to be like a republic, then perhaps structure it like a republic, as opposed to this, what appears to be very authoritarian and unaccountable bullshit. And with this thing here, which is growing, I just think it's desperate. And articles are cropping up legitimizing it. This might get tens of millions of votes, but it doesn't change anything. You don't go so far to the finish line to then move it and decide, you know what, it's now too far away because we moved it a few months ahead, which is too far for us to continue going down, although I maintain, because there is a chance of no deal. The chance of it happening is if next week, if the vote can somehow be brought forward with the deal, if the deal is rejected, then there will not be an extension to the withdrawal agreement. There will not be an extension. The EU have outright stated this. Macron himself said
the
it.
only people who are really, honestly, fighting for Remain are, in this case, the minority of the population of the UK. Because it doesn't look like anybody from the rest of the EU gives a shit.
No. We all thought
Just like,
Salvini would be the one to reject it, but Macron has been quite open about it. He
but
will.
like, it honestly just sounds like you guys are just floundering over yourselves, because you know how like when you were a kid and like, you know, the stereotypical like, well, I'm gonna hold my breath until you change your mind, Mom, and then your mom's like, I do it, and then you do it, and you're like, but what? You're not gonna stop me? No, I don't give a fuck.
I at this point I would settle for no deal, because I don't believe the deal she's presenting that they're trying to get through is better than no deal. I do believe that either present a rather rocky future, and I think it would be quite sad if we agreed to this deal. And I don't, but at the same time, now MPs' backs are against the wall. EU have now stated what terms will allow for an extension, because there will be one, but they have to vote her deal through first, because then they spend the remainder of the time dealing with the withdrawal agreement itself, legislating and all that nonsense. Which means now MPs have to decide, because they can't take no deal off the table. They can't do it. They can morally say, no, I don't agree with no deal, but no deal is a factual inevitability. You either accept the deal, or you will not get an extension and no deal happens. Which means in a week's time, we could still, what people call crash out, we could still do that. I think that's great.
I'm not upset about it.
Nor am I. I'm concerned, of course, like anyone else would be. But
Well,
only
yeah,
concerned in the sense in the sense that this government has floundered, like you said. They have floundered to get to this point, and now we are at this point. Sorry about that. Okay, you can go over there. Now that we've gotten to this point, and you've seen how bad they are at negotiating out of the EU, I'd be very concerned at how well they negotiate trade deals. That was my tablet.
Or was it?
My phone's doesn't make that sound.
I turn mine on silent all the time. But anyway.
But yeah, to add to this, Jeremy Corbyn, last night I spoke about this during individual meetings with party leaders. The idea was to sit down with them and try and work out a deal that would get the support of the House. The problem with this is, while the government is trying to negotiate the extension, and that's on the premise that the deal be accepted because that's the only deal on the table, he is trying to find a consensus within Parliament that could then be taken to the EU. But the EU have already said there is no renegotiations of this. And during this, he walked out of a meeting because Chuka Umunna was there. Now, some have said it was because Corbyn said Chuka Umunna is not a real party leader, because Chuka Umunna leads what is called the Independent Group, so TIG. And they are former Labour and Conservative MPs that left the party recently to form a different party, and Brexit was huge. They're anti-Brexit. Others have said it wasn't because of that at all, but because there were too many people in the room or something. But the fact is, Corbyn has been willing to sit with Hamas, Hezbollah, the IRA, without preconditions no less. But he's okay, but he will walk away from Chuka Umunna, and he will also set preconditions to sit with Theresa May. Now, yes, Theresa May's feckless, but she's not more dangerous. It's led to some very long time serving Labour MPs, most notably Tony Robinson, formerly Baldrick, tweeting that, he considered leaving the Labour Party because of this. And it is childish, if true, that Corbyn did something that reckless.
Look, every time I hear more news about the Labour Party, I'm wondering how they're still a viable party.
It does have me wonder. It's really, really tricky, because I get why he wouldn't want to legitimise the independent group, but at the same time, the independent group exists. Therefore, if he wants to get the support of the House, he needs all the voters he can get. And those 10 MPs, I think it's 10, 8, maybe 10, maybe more, those are MPs, regardless of their party affiliation now, who could help him get the support of the House that he needs to put his idea forward, even though his idea, or individual strands of it, have over time been rejected, in the sense that a second referendum was rejected, a people's vote rejected, Article 50 being revoked, that was also rejected, and a Norway Plus deal rejected, in the Commons no less. All the amendments that have this crap in, it's just, they've been rejected. So Labour's policies won't actually get through in the first place, and yet he persists in trying to do it as if people haven't said this at all, as if his deal hasn't already been rejected, which in PMQs he bragged that his suggestion got more votes than Theresa May's deal. But by definition, well, that was the people's vote thing.
Oh.
His idea, though, was while it did get 50 more votes than Theresa May's, it still lost, which means there is no majority in the House to get his deal through either. But that's all again. Go on.
There's a really funny saying that it's from a movie, but I can't remember what movie it's from. But it goes, you know what it's called when you almost win? Losing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, hey, I got more votes than you. Yeah, but you still lost.
Mm-hmm. Second place.
So it's like, cool, you're like less of a failure.
Mm-hmm. You're second place.
You're still a failure.
AKA the first loser.
Mm-hmm. It's like the guy who wins the Special Olympics. It's really not that much of a win.
He bases the idea of his attempted deal through as something that could happen. The problem there is, and it is mentioned repeatedly, and Jezza is meeting Barnier. The problem with it is that the EU have said there's no more renegotiations here. You don't get a second chance on this, a third chance even. I do want to find on traitors. There was a quote of Bercow in Parliament today about people being traitors.
Oh, I know all about that shit.
Here we go. Right, I found it. Right, I'm just going to skip it a little because there's an ad and I want to get rid of it first. I'll put this video on so people can see it.
Thank the leader for what she said in
Here we go.
response to that very powerful inquiry from the Honourable Lady. I've said it before in the light of some extremely ominous coverage of members some several months ago, but I'll say it again because it brooks of no misunderstanding or contradiction. None of you is a traitor. All of you are doing your best. This should not be, and I'm sure will not prove, to be a matter of any controversy whatsoever. From the chair, let me say that I believe passionately in the institution of Parliament, in the rights of members of this House, and in their commitment to their duty. And I use the word duty in the singular advisedly. The sole duty of every member of Parliament is to do what he or she thinks is right.
We're going to stop the video there, because there are a number of errors he makes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have some thoughts.
Yeah, well, by all means.
Oh, I was going to let you go through. And,
right, yes, so he references no one as a traitor. That is a subjective argument of what people define a traitor to be. Many would say a number of MPs, the majority of which are in fact traitors because the majority voted to leave and they are trying to make us remain. He mentions that they're doing what they think is best, but that's the problem. They think they're doing what is best, but they're not thinking about the people that voted and gave a definitive result. They're being very elitist in that regard, and that pisses a lot of people off. It disenfranchises them, it alienates them. They don't want to be involved in politics when they know the people that they vote in do not do what they tell them to do. Your constituents are your bosses. That's it. So those who keep, and I would argue with Carlos here, people fighting against Brexit, yes, those are against Brexit, they might be traitors. It depends on the constituency. Some will have voted Remain, and so the MP is well within their right to vote in the interest of their constituency. Those that are in power, though, and have no leg to stand on, because they don't represent a constituency anymore. The cabinet, notably, in the sense that they represent an office instead. The shadow cabinet potentially can also be argued to be that, because they are also drumming up policy. I would say that Burko has this over May and Corbyn. He is clearer, more concise when he speaks. He can make his emphatic point without looking like a massive spastic, getting out of breath within seconds. I do think he's wrong, a little. I don't believe the majority of MPs are traitors. I believe they're snobs. And I would very much like some fish and chips. What do you think?
Well, that was actually going to be the main point that I had, which was, first and foremost, your sole duty is to represent your constituents and basically lead them as they elected you to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's the end of it. It's not to do what's right. You were elected, sure, but it wasn't necessarily because you had all the great ideas and they were just like, yeah, if he just does whatever, like, we're cool with it. No.
Mm-hmm.
They voted you in because they believe that you, one, believed the same as the constituents did, but two, you would respectfully follow the votes of those people.
Mm-hmm. I'm very interested. I will go find the at some point the full video for that, because I don't know what the it was on a debate about patriotism where MP Diane Johnson had revealed she'd been called a traitor and summarily received messages saying she should be shot and hanged.
Hey, that's a lot.
Yeah, I don't believe he said that. He said all of you are doing your best. I disagree. I don't think they are. I think, unless what he meant was they're doing their best at pissing everyone else off or fighting amongst themselves. Perhaps, but not. They're not doing their best. It's just cringe now. And to those who keep talking about wanting extra salt on their chips, I find not putting salt and vinegar on your chips is better. Then you watch something like, I don't know, MPs debating Brexit, and the salt on it is enough to sustain you for many, many moons.
I just go onto Twitter.
See, I would do the same, but I've muted all the cucks, essentially. So, just Sophane.
I was going to say, so yeah, just Sophane, huh?
No offense to Sophane, but seriously, dude. You just argue on Twitter all day, and then moan that you've been arguing on Twitter all day. Seriously, what the fuck? You're a middle-aged man arguing with people on Twitter with a character limit and moaning about nuance. Seriously, come on. Fucking hell, grow up.
At least I have an excuse.
I have
I'm a young lad.
I just post shit pictures and hell abuse of people, but it's obvious. It doesn't matter.
See, I enjoy the shit posting, so that's why I do it.
That's the only reason I do it. There was this evening, and I was watching one of the news channels on YouTube. They had a live stream for the statement being given by the EU on this. But when it said it started at 7, nothing happened. I was there at 6 because obviously they're an hour behind. I decided to wait until 8. Still nothing. I was quite annoyed. Never mind. I was hoping that we'd get some clarity on whether or not this could be agreed. What we know is that they are supposedly offering a delay till May 22nd. And if May can get the yes vote on the deal by next Friday, right, then then the extension will definitely happen. But it will not be the extension will only be till then, and not till the 30th of June, which means everything then has to be ratified before the transition period in a month. That's all she has at that point. Maybe
is that even remotely plausible?
It can happen, but based on how slow Parliament have been, one could argue it's unlikely. I do think with the debates that will inevitably happen, they will have to be expedient. When you're under that time constraint, they'll be long. The Speaker will be in that hall Commons every day for probably 15 to 18 hours while they do this. And it's going to be an absolute clusterfuck. There was a joke, people referenced that in many leaked reports from the meetings that May had, is that she didn't really have anything to say if the vote fails. Because what can you do? At that point you only have 2 options. Revoke Article 50 or you go no deal. And I think you go no deal. Because either you go no deal and just agree new trade deals, or you go no deal and they come begging to us. Because that is the only option available to them to offset the damage done to them. What do you think?
Well, there's nothing. Okay, so this was the kind of the point that I was mentioning earlier when I was talking about like the EU not actually trying to fight against the no deal, because obviously they said, fuck yourself when you guys had brought up the possibility of, hey, we have this potential deal, what do you think? They were like, nah, fuck off with that shit and get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So you're not going to get anything out of that. All right. So that's it. We're good. Now, if then you call their bluff and you do it and see what happens afterwards. Because if they're going to bend, it's going to be when suddenly they're not ready.
Yeah. I do have a 39-second clip I'm going to play of Macron talking about the deal, I believe.
We do respect the vote of British people. We do respect what the Prime Minister and the Parliament are making. But we have to be clear. We can discuss and agree on an extension, if this is a technical extension, in case of a yes vote on the agreement we negotiated during 2 years. In case of no vote or no, directly, it will guide everybody to a no deal, for sure.
Yeah. Load of crap. He is right. They have to vote the deal through. Fuck off. Go over there somewhere. But I do think, like, the EU are trying to downplay. They're claiming a lot of it comes from, like I said, there's a quote here from Juncker, who said he didn't even know he had this much patience when referring to the political drama at home. It's not political drama. It's the obvious, we don't want to leave and do what the people voted us to do. So we're going to make this as difficult as possible, like pouty little children in a playpen.
Exactly.
It's just gay.
And not the good kind.
Right. There was another quote from the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, a nation that shouldn't be one. It is essentially the size of a teeny tiny village. He said, "You decide to leave. You want us, the EU, to be the bad guy. If there's no deal in Westminster in days, there'll be no deal. We can't extend for me. This is then over." I know Luxembourg is a country. Cough, lol. But I'm not sure I really want to listen to a country that is about the size of my little finger.
That's how I feel about Rhode Island sometimes.
Wait, you want to nuke it as well, do you?
Oh, absolutely not. I do not condone any kind of military action against my own citizens. And further, on the same note, actually, because they are part of the United States, they are entitled to their own form of electoral college votes. So I still believe in each country, despite how small it may be.
What I just heard there was, because you respect the Electoral College, you're racist.
That has been said.
Because I saw Soy Fane talking about this crap about
oh, I saw that, and
wanted
I
to wipe out the
wanted
Electoral
to
College.
slap the boy.
I'm sorry, but what you're doing there is putting all the power in the cities. That happens in Chicago, I believe, where the majority of districts within the state, I believe, vote red, but because of the city, they get outvoted.
If you did it by, let's say, like all the districts,
that's what I think
had
was
to
shown,
vote.
And it was like only 1 or 2 voted Democrat, but there were enough people within it to outdo everything else.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I was going to go with. If you, let's say, we took all the districts that voted, and just the districts, like let's say there were no states, and you did like a popular vote based on every single district, you'd still lose. Because
so I don't
Republicans
support...
inhabit more land.
Yeah, this is why I don't
We are
support
more places.
the whole revoking of the Electoral College. Representation is important, as is one's appeal for the majority of the country, as opposed to the cities only. Which, if that was the case, then that's the only thing people would campaign in. They wouldn't campaign in bumblefuck hick nowhere. They'd only campaign in the cities, and I think that wouldn't be a sign of a president. That'd be the sign of I don't know really what it is.
A professional campaigner.
A professional campaigner. Yeah, let's go with that. I'm done with Brexit. Your
All
turn.
right. Yeah, sure.
Do you want to start with
Let's
Russia or Kentucky or New Zealand?
Let me see which one we. Let's do the. Let's do the collusion one. That might be.
Okay, cool. Okay, so what is this about?
So the Ukraine has launched an investigation into collusion with a higher up in the government of the Ukraine to boost Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign.
Why?
Okay, well, I'm glad you asked me that, and I actually took some notes on it, but they're in my bag, so give me like 20 seconds.
Okay, while you do that, then I'll read the chat. They all get 2 senators, even Rhode Island. Good. Simple fact, if you're entitled to it, you should have it. You shouldn't have it taken away because of... fuck the Electoral College, it doesn't represent anyone. That's interesting. I think if you don't have the Electoral College...
Alright, I'm here.
So I'm addressing the chat. I think, from my perspective, if you don't have the Electoral College, then you're only going to have the cities' votes that actually matter. That would do more harm to alienate people in states that are more rural, and I think it would actually cause a bit of a monopoly in voting, because I don't believe the cities are predominantly red, are they?
No.
So I think in that regard, it would be very bad to then not have people. I know they're not the majority of the population, but as your turnouts have gotten lower and lower as the years have gone by, Beach, and I have been paying attention, by the way. I would argue that people are becoming more and more disenfranchised to vote because their votes don't matter. That's what they say. Therefore, since the cities are arguably more blue, and I didn't say all were blue, I said many of them are, majority perhaps, they would be the ones that people would campaign in, and those would be the swing votes, or the majority of the votes, because those in the, as I earlier stated, the more rural areas aren't going to start turning out to vote if they know they don't have a voice. Therefore, it would then just come down to the cities. I know this seems like a semantics argument, but I'm starting to think I'm right. No offence intended to Beechin, but I'm just a snobby Brit, remember, and we have first past the post. Because we're still retards like that. You're no.
And also, you're just fucking wrong.
Okay, cool. You can argue with Beechin on that. I can't be asked. Because
Yeah,
I
from an American who went from a populated state of New Jersey to where I am now in the South.
Right.
Go fuck yourself. You're wrong.
Okay, you say that. For me, I don't understand it too much anyway because I'm British. So it's not something I'm knowledgeable in either. So I don't want to offend you in that sense, Beechin. Because I should know. I will learn more in time. But I'll let Trups talk about his collusion thing, because perhaps it'd be a better idea than me ignorantly talking about things I don't know anything about.
Yes, I know the Electoral College is actually skewed towards the rural.
Ah, cool. Thanks, Beechin. Cheers, man.
But while that is true, it's also gerrymandered to usually fit the same kind of constituent and the same kind of district that state has always represented. So, for example, a district would be gerrymandered if in a Republican state, it would be gerrymandered to ensure the most amount of Republican votes.
Okay. Why is that?
Why is that? It's because that's how you secure elections. While that part has been previously used to also disenfranchise other voters, depending on where you are, you could argue that that is nonpartisan because it happens in either state, either blue or red. So in that aspect, sure, you could argue the Electoral College is skewed, but the actual purpose of Electoral College, not gerrymandering, has to do with a state as, let's go with like South Dakota and California have a vastly different population. So of course you're going to have a vast majority of people in California vote for a specific candidate, and the popular vote, simply by California voting that way, is going to look as if more people want that person. But if we didn't have states the way we did, sure, popular vote would make sense, but we don't. We have states. So each individual has a local government, and that's the purpose of...
Do you think then this would encourage more people to then try and campaign in states that are more of a different colour, to then try and swing them the other way? Is that what they would try?
Actually, yes, that happens quite often. For example, in my state, I have had Kamala Harris already passed through here. Bernie Sanders is slated very soon, and I just saw an article earlier today that Beto is coming through sometime. The comments down below that article were hilarious. They were a mix of, who the fuck invited you here? And, oh, finally, a politician we understand. So at least on Facebook, there's a healthy, diverse opinion.
Okay.
Of which I usually harass, and I usually go in and start, poking and jabbing at people.
Should we get back to the collusion thing now, then?
Yes, okay, so... let me get the article out first and read that before I go into my entire conspiracy theory. This one. Okay, so you got it up?
Yep.
Alright, so it says, after nearly 3 years and millions of tax dollars, the Trump-Russia collusion probe is about to be resolved. It is true, we're waiting on that one. Everyone's waited with bated breath. Emerging in its place is newly unearthed evidence suggesting another foreign effort to influence the 2016 election, this time in the favor of the Democrats. Ukraine's top prosecutor divulged in an interview aired Wednesday on Hill.tv that he has opened an investigation into whether his country's law enforcement apparatus intentionally leaked financial records during the 2016 U.S. presidential campaign about then-Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort in an effort to sway the election in favor of Hillary Clinton.
Whenever I see Paul Manafort's name, I immediately think of Barry Manilow, and I feel really shitty for it.
Well, I mean, both made a lot of money.
Yeah, one got very famous for singing a song about somebody who killed themselves, but made it seem so positive.
I don't know. Let's talk about Cobain on that one.
Well, there's that too. Okay, sorry, I interrupted your train of thought. Please continue.
Oh, yeah, all right. Let's see here. Do we want to keep going with the article, or you want me to go into conspiracy?
Go with conspiracy, I don't mind. Although probably get pulled from YouTube.
I mean, probably, but actually everything about this conspiracy is based in fact.
Oh,
so...
Stupid tablet.
So what's interesting was, with the rise of Putin post Soviet Union collapse, he was eventually elected he was replaced in 1999 after Boris Yeltsin appoints him to PM, and then in December of 1999 he becomes president.
Okay.
During his time as a prime minister, he basically formed a whole bunch of and yes, this is Russia first.
Yeah, I know. I recognise it when you talk about President Putin was a prime minister before getting his presidency back.
Yes.
Although after this he's fucked.
But it is relevant. So when he was prime minister, he grouped up with all the oligarchs and mob bosses, mostly people who were ex-KGB like himself, and they started to create a very nationalistic Russia. Putin's original opinions of after the Soviet Union had collapsed was that Russia had lost a whole lot of land and people,
All the countries.
what he believed were compatriots of his.
Is this the argument about Ukraine is Russian land and stuff?
Well, at least that is from the Russian point of view. But this may actually lead us into where we're going with this. So around that time, and then in 2000 up to about 2008, actually the relationship with the U.S. and Russia was actually quite well. Putin even vacationed in George Bush's summer home. However, we started to see something go wrong after a while, because Putin was always skeptical of the U.S.'s intentions, especially when it came to things like NATO. So you saw conversations start happening in 2008 after Russian-U.S. relationships started going downhill.
Okay.
And what you ended up having was a whole lot of shots fired back and forth. The U.S. would call Russia insecure and Russia called the U.S. insecure and destructive. No, U.S. called Russia insecure and destructive. Lies about bombing Obama. Okay, yeah. I'm looking at my own notes. That's why I'm doing that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm scrolling through the article.
So it was after the U.S. bombed, what was it? It was Arab Spring. That absolutely shocked Putin. He was genuinely surprised at all this shit. So when he was eventually reelected in 2012, after Medvedev went through his presidential term.
Yes, the single time he did.
Yes. It was very, very controversial. It even spawned a whole bunch of riots because it was pretty much assumed that he won by cheating. He was called out in 2012 by none other than Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
Oh dear.
In 2013, each country is now blaming each other for the shit that's handling, for the shit that they're each doing. Russia is, bad for Ukraine, and they're blaming the U.S. for interfering with Russian politics, and the U.S. denies that they interfere with Russian politics, and they have constant anti-American sentiment. So U.S. is like, fuck you, Russia. 2014, Russia goes full nationalist and independent from the West. In 2014, Putin also decides, all right, we're going ham. We're going into the Ukraine. We're annexing Crimea and the Black Sea. At this point, sanctions go downhill real fast from the EU to the US, which focused on finances, energy, defense businesses, arms, banks, oil. And that was a combination US and the EU. Basically tanked the Russian the economy.
Oh dear.
During that time, Russia then strengthens its alliance with Syria.
That would explain a lot.
Because they needed the oil and somebody to sell to.
Yeah.
So that gets us more or less into where we are now. Now, what was the Ukraine doing in this whole time? Well, the Ukraine in 2008 applied to be a part of NATO. In 2010, that was shelved. And during 2008 to 2009, there was a NATO Bucharest summit where Georgia, another place where the Russians had recently attacked, and the Ukraine both were discussed as possible members of NATO. What's very interesting is that Russia and the U.S. had gone into what is called the, quote, ironclad agreement, which was Reagan and Gorbachev saying, Reagan promised NATO would not expand eastward. They fucking lied.
Obviously.
Yes. So, basically what you have is Russia seeing a whole bunch of lies from the West, which gives them ample belief that they don't need to handle the West. Like, we don't believe in you. You are lying about everything you do. Fuck you guys. So now we fast forward to 2016, and it's Trump v. Clinton. Clinton is personally responsible for sanctions against Russia. The Ukraine is really on the side of the person who is currently telling the big brother to the side of the Ukraine, go fuck yourself. Which is why I don't necessarily believe that the Russians didn't interfere with the 2016 election. But I don't think they were the only ones. So when I saw this, it kind of gave clout to this this conspiracy theory that the Ukraine sided with Clinton because they hoped that if Clinton won, they would continue harsh sanctions on Russia and possibly cripple them more.
Okay.
Whereas Russia then saw Clinton as an adversary and one who tanked their economy, and so they were going to do anything to stop her.
Okay. Well, that's
Conspiracy over.
That's quite the conspiracy.
Only the last like 2 sentences was actually not fact.
It's quite the timeline, though, to be fair. I did notice in the article a number of letters referenced, including one from, addressed to Senator Pompeo.
Yeah.
About the current ambassador to the Ukraine, where the letter referenced wanting to terminate the ambassador's status for reasons about speaking about the having disdain for the current administration with regards speaking to other ambassadors about it, and it was signed by Pete Sessions.
Yeah.
I like that they tried to
Now,
redact it with a pen, but if I zoom in on the image, I can see his name underneath.
Actually, everything about that document screams mishandling or
There you go. So
forged.
You can see Pete Sessions' name right there.
Yeah, I can't actually legitimately believe that that document just because it looks so fucking fake. that one in particular, just because, first of all, that is not how you mark a document private.
No, it's not, but also the redaction is lazy.
Yes, it is, which is a gross mishandling of data. However, if we're going to argue, Hillary Clinton is not necessarily the best at handling classified data.
Mm. Well, if that was the case, it would have been shredded.
Yes, that is also a possibility, but I'm not sure. The most I can say about this article in particular is that I'm really interested to see how this goes. Because Hillary, a staffer on the Hillary Clinton campaign, has said that she will not rule out a 2020 run until after the Mueller report comes out. She said it, yes, but her staffer did not.
She's got to rule it out.
Oh, she's got to. So especially with this coming out, it's going to be fucking interesting.
Well, it depends if it gets any traction or is just spoken about, really.
Isn't the Ukraine full of ethnic Poles and Germans? No, it's full of ethnic Ukrainians.
Except for Crimea, remember.
Yeah, that part's not so great. I mean, you could say the same about Chechnya, I suppose.
Possibly.
But at least arguably that one was a rebel state.
Yeah. Did you want to talk about New Zealand?
Yes.
Okay then. So I don't know anything about this because I didn't even know they had guns. I thought they had glowing blue swords.
New Zealand, not the Death Star.
I was referring to Frodo's sting.
Yes, that was the other option. I didn't know how far you were going to go with that, but yes, I have seen the New Zealand set. It is beautiful.
It's the only one I had. I don't really...
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't really know anything about New Zealand, other than a bunch of internet feminists live there.
Yeah, weird, right? But this was something interesting.
Okay.
So, as everyone at this point is fully aware, New Zealand had a mass murder in which a person went into 2 mosques and killed 49 people and wounded dozens other.
Twisted individual, and they're just terrible.
Right. Obviously, at this point, most of us have disavowed them either on Twitter or publicly in a video. So I'm not going to rehash that now.
Yeah.
Point is, though, is after that whole thing went down, New Zealand went into full authoritarian mode.
Mm-hmm.
They announced a ban on semi-automatic rifles, which, for anybody listening, is most every rifle, except for, I suppose, a bolt action or a lever action. But even still, you could argue that that's kind of semi-auto.
Well, on the list here, you've got assault rifles. Were they legal to begin with?
Probably not, but I don't think people actually know what an assault rifle is.
High-capacity magazines. Now, those are the what I know. I've heard people argue about this for America as well. And you've got military-style semi-automatic. So it doesn't mean all semi-automatic. Just those.
I guess it also defines what you mean by military style.
Well,
do you mean it's colored black?
For all we know, their version of a semi-automatic could be a fucking Colt.
Yeah, no, it could be.
Although I wouldn't be surprised if they used like polymer-styled is it Ruger or Luger? Luger?
It's Ruger.
Ruger. I wouldn't be surprised if they just used some old German guns with a very long pistol bit on. So you can tell I know nothing about guns.
That's why you have me.
It's so handy. I watch the military arms channel, sorry, and he does a lot of gun testing on it, and it's fascinating to watch. But everything is a semi-automatic, so what's the point?
Well, I guess that's kind of the question.
Does a revolver count as a semi-automatic?
Not actually, because
But
most...
you could be pedantic enough to say it is.
Yes, it's based on the amount of times you pull a trigger. If you pull the trigger, yes, it does fire.
See,
But I think in terms of what they're banning, it has to do with either a magazine or no one has one of these, but belt fed.
yeah, yeah, no, I get it.
No one has a belt fed fucking weapon.
By the way, in the
But I
chat,
know they're going to include.
someone mentioned bolt action rifles. Those are cool. That is very
Yeah,
cool.
but would you consider a bolt action a semi?
No, I don't.
Semi-auto? Because you'd have to reload it every time.
Well, don't you have the ones that have a 5 cartridge magazine? Do
Yeah,
you still have to pull a lever for that as well, or?
not always. Yeah, Gatling guns right off. Exactly, belt fed.
Aw.
Yeah, semi-automatic is defined as magazine-fed self-loading firearm. Basically, you pull the trigger and it fires.
Yeah.
It would be because see now that I hate that definition, because even some revolvers have like a speed loader and a revolver basically is like this little, it almost looks like a punch knife, but you basically open up a chamber and you take this thing that has all the bullets attached to it and you just plug it right in, and you can flip it back into place, and now you're loaded up with 5 or 6 shots again.
In the chat, there's reference to AR-15s, and I find it fascinating that the AR-15 is often touted as one that needs to be banned. But isn't that quite a generic name for a certain type of gun?
Kind of. An AR-15 was a specific gun, or is a specific gun, but it's kind of like saying it's a Honda Civic. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
The AR-15 was made as a replacement for Vietnam era M14s. It was adopted by the military instead. After quite a while, actually, in field testing, they went with the M16 instead.
Okay.
But it was a predecessor of the M16.
Right. With regards to New Zealand, what are your views on this banning of all these weapons straight away?
I feel like it is a reactive solution.
It reminds you of the knife ban in London. Oh, we'll stop the crime by making the weapon illegal. That will totally stop people having it.
Well, it's even... You could argue that maybe it would work for New Zealand because it is an island, but you would have to be able to account for every weapon that exists within your borders. And theoretically, this guy was from Australia. You couldn't even account for the 4 weapons that he brought with him.
To the chat, would this ban happen if it was a church and not a mosque? I have no idea. But I would like to believe that it would happen.
I'm going to argue and say yes.
Yeah, I don't know, but I do believe there is enough sense if it had happened in a church, because of how many people, especially with the number of people hurt and killed. I think it would have happened in any place. Because it was so fucking brutal. Yeah.
And like there were so many factors that made this just a terrible, terrible situation. I want to say yes, but I can't be sure.
I do think in the long term, this is not how you tackle this particular, how you react to it, because it does. I don't know the stats for New Zealand's gun crime related stuff to know whether or not this was an isolated incident in New Zealand or whether there is a trend of shootings in New Zealand. I don't know, so I can't.
I'm gonna guess and say probably not.
Therefore, this reactive response is just counterproductive. It doesn't solve any problems. It just, I don't know, something about it unsettles me. I don't know how to phrase it, I'm afraid.
That's all right. Basically, what I find... Okay, so what's interesting is I pulled up this is insider.com, and this is one of the paragraphs. It says, the owner of the retailer Gun City, David Tipple, confirmed to media in a press conference that his company sold the suspect 4 weapons, but not the military-style semi-automatic rifle primarily used to carry out the attack. So that means that likely what they ended up selling him was probably 2 of the shotguns that he used, as well as the other like hunting rifle that he had in the car.
And to Peter Edwards in the chat, you could have a toy knife for a Lego figurine and still be considered deadly and, you know, put in prison. Yeah.
I'm trying to find which ones he used.
Oh, okay. Well, I wouldn't listen to me. I know someone hit him with a cash machine or something. That's about it. That's all I know, because I really didn't want to. It's just not my area.
Okay, so here's. Oh wait, no, this is Stephen Paddock.
UK denies asylum to Iranian converts, saying the religion is not peaceful. Yes, I saw that Living the Dream. Actually, it was mentioned to me earlier by a patron, and I thought it was disgusting that for the second time we've banned someone, a second time we've not permitted someone to come here who needed asylum, who was an apostate to Islam. Again, I do think some people do deserve asylum, and obviously they need to be vetted. And it's very tricky when it comes to those who come from places where they have turned their back on the dominant faith, especially considering how intolerant it is within those more Arabic countries.
Alright, so...
Bubble wrap suits, now that sounds cool. I'd like one of those. I think I remember seeing
I am on the...
oh, go on.
I am on the most... questionable of websites, 8chan for those.
Oh well, you still can get on there. Fantastic.
Oh yes, I can. New Zealand cannot, and also in New Zealand you can't buy Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules to Life, which is fucking weird.
I put the source for that in my citations area of my Miskatonic server because I'm doing the video on that on Monday. Because it's just fascinating.
All right, so what the sleuths on 8chan have determined is that it looked like 2 modded AR-15s with M-LOK sights, as well as what appears to be a Mossberg 930, most likely, which is a I believe it's an ambidextrous shotgun.
Why does that matter?
Oh, it doesn't. And the other pump shotgun appears to be a Remington 870. So it was 2 semi-auto AR-15s, and obviously that's fucking redundant, Trups. Sorry. And yeah, then you have the Mossberg and the Remington.
Okay. So, what do you think should happen in New Zealand going forward?
Okay, so in my opinion, the fact that they're banning assault rifles means that they are catering to the reaction crowd. What is an assault rifle? It's a scary looking black gun. That's all it is. That's what it's a lovely video that Steven Crowder put out on his channel after the Las Vegas shooting, where, well, actually no, it was before that. He was trying to debunk the gun show loophole, I think, and he brought out a whole bunch of guns and he laid them on the table and he asked people, like, which one of these do you think should be banned? And if it was made of wood, then, or it appeared to be made of wood, then they were fine with it. But if it was black and had, you know, like literally the same fucking gun, if it was black, they almost always hated it.
Racist.
Well, it's weird because there are so many guns that you could call quote unquote assault weapons, or my favorite is military style firearms. I'm like, cool, nobody can have a 1911 anymore. Fuck me, I guess it's a handgun.
Right. I was
I'm
going
like,
to ask.
they use all kinds of shit in the military. Like, it's not just, the super scary M16 rifle that you played with when you played Black Ops 1.
Black Ops is good.
Assault rifle, a firearm that is of intermediate caliber, magazine fed, and automatic fire operation. Nope.
The campaign for that game was good, though. Don't mind me, I liked Black Ops, okay.
Because you could argue that a 9mm doesn't actually count for intermediate caliber. Magazine fed is fine, but that's basically just a spring. An automatic fire operation, see, that's the kicker, and that is the thing that usually has an automatic weapons ban as we know it in the United States.
Yeah,
And that's been illegal since the 1970s.
I knew, that's one of the very few things about guns I knew. That was the whole automatic, or assault rifle, I guess. Automatic is kind of, no.
I mean, don't get me wrong, you can still shoot automatic weapons at a range, but they are usually kept by the range operator.
Yeah, strict rules on that.
Yes, and they are strictly regulated by, oh god, it's not the FAA, it's not the FDA. Firearms.
The Men in Black.
And Weapons Administration.
The Men in
FBI,
Black.
fair.
The Men in Black.
Yeah, whatever, I don't give a fuck.
The Men in Black.
Yeah, sure. The man, if you will.
Yeah, the Man in Black.
Yeah.
Okay.
ATF, yeah. So, it's alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Yep.
Right. ATF.
So, yeah. And I work with the other ones that you heard.
Oh, did you? Honestly, you did an alphabet.
Oh, it's okay. I literally could just start listing off fucking acronyms, and you'll never understand what I'm saying, but they all make sense to me.
Congratulations.
But the point being is that because of the verbiage and the quick response that the New Zealand Prime Minister used, you're still playing on a reactive response.
Yes.
There's an old adage that says you should never make a decision when you are sad, and you should never get into an argument when you're angry.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Because you will eventually make a mistake. And it won't be necessarily your fault. It will be a condition based on your emotions.
It's one of the, when people get into arguments, when you get angry, I often find the person that got angry is the person that's about to lose. Because they become irrational. They become unpredictable. They don't have any structure. I don't care for that.
And don't get me wrong, this was a terrible thing, and I don't blame them for having this response. But I do blame them for acting on it.
I believe it's the wrong response. But I don't know. I'm ignorant on guns. Okay, I know nothing about them.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm actually more versed in a different style of armament, but that's a different story. But no, I don't like what they've done. I don't like that they have shut down certain books. I don't like that they've shut down access to certain sites. It's becoming a much more terrifying situation. This is what we have warned people about. People like you, people like me, people like Dankula and Irate Bear and all them. We have warned you that these kinds of responses would happen. People call it a slippery slope.
It is.
But now we can see it in action.
I keep hearing terms used for this. Slippery slope is the most common one. I hear other ones for like Barbra Streisand thing and Dunning-Kruger or whatever. It doesn't matter, but those are different things, of course. It's a shame that they are coming to fruition, to be honest. Quite frankly, I think it's just sad. But that's just me.
It is, and it's concerning, but I hope that somebody maybe challenges it.
Well, let's hope so. To an extent, it depends obviously on the individual, the context and such. But I do think it's a bit hasty. But it's unsurprising. Some people are more reactive than they would like to admit, and it makes them look good at the same time. By banning the weapons responsible for the death of many people, they can use it to spin for optics' sake. And that's what's more important to a lot of people.
And this is an unpopular opinion in our sphere of YouTube, but giving them the benefit of the doubt, maybe they honestly believe this is the best thing for their country. Doesn't mean they're right, but I can't say the future.
So the chat, Men in Black 4, I believe, is called Men in Black International, I believe, and yes, it is coming out soon. There was a trailer for it. It is different. Before we finish, did you want to shill anything?
I put up 2 videos that are kind of more long form.
Food for thought, I noticed as well.
This week. Yeah, I put up one of my food for thoughts. I haven't done one of those in a while, but it is a topic that is going to lead into another video that I plan to do in the near future. So that's coming up soon. Other than that, I did talk about some gaming, or I guess you could call it just like tech news on Tuesday. So that's all on my channel. If you guys haven't already subscribed, you can come subscribe and check those videos
below. Yeah, link below to Trups' channel. I will, tomorrow morning after I do some overtime, record a video on an update to the me being copyright claimed and blocked, because I think my conclusion is quite satisfying. I thoroughly enjoyed last night. I was on Snapchat with Anime Renee, because she and I talk through Snapchat, it's easier, and I was spamming her messages about what happened to me, and the responses from her were quite funny. I can't read.
That's good.
I can't even repeat them. Fuck it. They're very.
That's fine.
But yeah, she had also been struck, and she's considering legal action instead. But I've told her to do the copyright claim system properly, because I think she won't get a strike. They don't have spines.
No, probably not.
I took it to the second step. I didn't even have to get to the final solution. They had to buckle because someone would get a strike and it wouldn't be me. I watched my video back again on BitChute. Link below. And yeah, no, I did nothing wrong. Fuck off.
Well, there you go. That's really all there is to it.
Okay. I think we're done tonight then. Thank you,
I think so too.
Everyone, for joining us. Thank you to Stephen M for that huge donation again. Say goodnight, Trups, I guess.
Good night, Trups.
Good night, Trups.